Hey guys, so I just finished my interview which I mentioned in my last video. If you haven't seen that video and you want to hear about my morning and what a fucking nightmare it's been, check that out. I'll put a link in the description. Meanwhile, let's get back to my story, which I've been meaning to get up and I haven't, and here it is. So anyway, recently I've been helping out one of my daughter's friends' mums. She's in the process of getting her international driver's license converted to a Victorian driver's license. For those that don't know, I always say I'm from Melbourne. Melbourne's the state. I mean, Victoria's the state and Melbourne is like the city, like the main, like central part of Victoria. Just to clear that up. Anyway, so I've been helping her out. Like she's one of those people that doesn't like driving out of the comfort zone. Like she doesn't like driving places that she hasn't driven before by herself. Yeah, she's a bit of apprehensive driver, I guess. Like she doesn't want to go anywhere that's unfamiliar to her. Like she's a bit nervous like that. So I was like, yeah, fine. Like, you know, I got nothing else on, so whenever you want to go for a drive, let me know and we'll go. So we've been going, and you know, initially, like the first couple of drives, they were great, and I found her to be really interesting. Like I was asking her questions about you know, her tradition and culture and things like that, because I find I really find it interesting seeing like how other people live and different cultures and traditions and stuff. I just find it really interesting seeing what's different in other parts of the world as opposed to here. So you know, I was asking her questions and you know, she's telling me all this stuff, and I discovered quite quickly, which she also admitted herself also, that she has a far more open mindset than the general population of the country that she's from, because where she's from, women are still quite suppressed. It's like a, you know, man is king, woman is like servant kind of, you know. The man is like the king and the god, and you know, the woman just does as she's told, seen not heard kind of bullshit. So, but she is very open-minded and just interesting as anything. Like we've had some really interesting conversations. Anyway, so it wasn't until last week, after we'd been you know, on a number of drives, and she was asking me, I heard something flapping like I'm about to lose something. You might see some papers start flying out of the back. Yeah, so she said, she was asking me like about my background and stuff, like, you know, were you born in Melbourne, have you always lived here, that kind of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I was born here. I've actually lived in the same house for pretty much all my life as well. She's like, oh, that's good. And then I said, yeah. I said, oh, except for we demolished it and rebuilt in '96 because it was kind of old house. Like my mum bought it in, I was born in '84. I think my mum bought the house in '81. And then, you know, I went to continue on with what I was saying. And she's like, 84? You're born in '84? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, that means you're exactly 10 years younger than me. And I was like, oh, really? That's cool. And then went to go on, continue my story. And she's like, so when did you have your daughter? You must have been like, what, 20 or something? And I said, no, I was around just 19. And she's like, oh, that's far too young. And I was like, yeah. And, you know, it's getting increasingly more awkward with each statement that comes out of her mouth. So then she says to me, is that normal here for children to have children? And I was kind of taken back by how direct and blunt she was with her judgment of me. You know, like when I was pregnant and when my daughter was like a baby, people looked at me funny all the time. And it got to the point where like people, like friends would be walking along with me and they're like, did you just see the way that fucking bitch looked at you? And I'll be like, oh no, like I was just immune to it. In the end, it's like, it was just so normal that people were gonna look at me like I was a piece of shit. I was like immune to it, like I didn't even notice anymore. And like anyone that would be like out with me would be like horrified at like the way that people would look at me. So, but that is like a far distant memory now. Like that hasn't happened for a long time, and never, like regardless of, you know, any time frame, age, anything, no one has ever been so directly blunt in their judgment of me. Like, yeah, looking down their nose at me, like that kind of thing, like giving me dirty looks and stuff. Like, yeah, that just water off a duck's back. Like, totally familiar with that shit. But never has someone been so direct and blunt. Like, she may as well have been like, you're a flaming slut. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was really direct. And I was really taken back by it because like I don't even get dirty looks anymore. So I was really stunned. And so I was just stunned to silence. And then she just brought the line of conversation back to her. And I realized that she would have loved those first few times that we went on drives, because she just loves nothing more than to talk about herself. And I found it to be incredibly irritating, because we would be having a conversation. It's not like this is story time, I'm telling you something, like it was in the first couple of days when I asked her something and then she's telling me a story. It's like we're having a conversation back and forward, but every time I would open my mouth to say something, she would jump straight on top of me and talk over me, interrupt me. And I was... So she brought the conversation back to herself and goes on to tell me that she feels like a single mum because her husband doesn't help out with like drop-offs and pickups and stuff. Like, it's seen as like looking after the kids is woman's work, so he doesn't help out and she has to look after the kids by herself. So she feels like a single mum. And we were talking about how you know, it's nice when someone does something for you, like if your child goes and stays at someone's house or something like that, to give some sort of token of appreciation when you pick them up. And I was saying, like, you know, what my mum would do, you know, she would always give like a box of chocolates or some flowers or a bottle of wine or something like that, depending on who it was and her relationship with them, what she knew of them, blah blah. But she would always bring something when she came to pick me up. And then she was saying like, oh, I've only just recently been having to ask people to help me since I've been working. Mind you, she works 4 hours a day during school hours. So I don't know what the fuck that's all about. That makes this so fucking hard now. But yeah, so, and then she was like, you know, other than that, like, I'm always with the kids and, you know, it's important to be with the kids, and like how she hates the fact that she has to work and blah blah. All right, rewind. First of all, she doesn't have to work. Her husband makes a considerable amount of money, and he just sort of throws it in her direction to do with as she pleases. All she has to do is pick up the kids and cook and clean. That is all that is required of her, and she has access to whatever she needs. And it got to the point where it really felt like she was rubbing shit in my face. Like, I don't understand why, if you know that you, or if you believe that you are, or if you know that you are better off than somebody else, first of all, regardless, I think that talking about finances, as I've talked about in a previous video where I'm responding to comments in Max Mofo's video, I think it's rude to discuss money or ask about money from people. Like, I think it's rude to discuss that. Like, I don't give a fuck how much money you make. I wouldn't ask someone that, and I don't really want to hear about it, regardless of whether you make more or less than me. You're not going to give me, like, I'm not entitled to any of it. You're not going to give me any of it, so why the fuck do I need to know? It doesn't matter. Anyway, but it just got to the point where it really felt like she was trying to rub it in my face. She's going on about how, like, you know, back in her country she's pretty much a celebrity and everyone knows her name and she's in the fucking newspapers, and, you know, she misses that life and she gave it all up for the kids and blah blah blah, and how fucking her life's so hard because she can't go do fucking lattes and lunches with the other fucking pussy mums who also have rich husbands who throw cash in their direction, you know, and how her kids never want for a thing and blah blah because her husband gives her money and whatever. What relevance does any of that information have to me? Why do I give a flying fuck? And why would you tell someone who you believe is far worse off than you? Why, like, what does that achieve other than making that person feel like absolute rat shit, which is what she did. Because I'm not like some scumbag, you know, like I've said, like a broken record. The area that I'm from is a really good area, which I've lived in like my whole life. It wasn't until my mum got sick and passed away that shit got real. Because prior to that, I never had to deal with anything. I'd never paid a bill. I'd never had to deal with my own problems or anything. Hey, there's a train. That's a Melbourne train. Are you silky smooth? That's a train. Never mind to anyone else.